Die Sprache, die wir benutzen, um über die Straße zu reden, ist keine Spiegel der Realität, aber definiert vielmehr, was wir sehen, was wir nicht sehen und welche Maßnahmen wir zusammen ergreifen. So this was the only German I'm doing today. I will try, but before I start with my talk, I want to hear from you where you are at. Okay, so you're all sitting here, it's warm. It's boring maybe at this time, so I want you all to stand up first. Please stand up, it's okay. Stand up? I'll stand up. It's very simple, two questions. Zwei Statements, und wenn Sie dann nicht mit einstimmen, setzen Sie sich, wenn Sie damit einstimmen, bleiben Sie stehen. Das erste Statement ist, wir brauchen eine Verkehrs- oder Mobilitätswende. Sind wir alle einig? Gut. Die zweite Frage. Ich möchte gerne eine wichtige Rolle dabei spielen. Wow. Awesome. Okay, you can sit. Please. If you want to play an important role in any transition, in any systemic change, you need to understand the answer to the question, why were John Lennon and Yoko Ono in bed with a bicycle? We're looking here at the newlywed John Lennon and Yoko Ono in 1969, so just 1 year later after 1968, as we heard before. And they were just married, and after the marriage, they started to travel the world as a honeymoon. They went to several places, and one of the places was Amsterdam. They were protesting for systemic change, right? They wanted to be part of transformative change, Mobilitätswende or the Gesellschaftswende. They wanted change. But they didn't glue themselves to the street. They did a much smarter thing. They stayed in their 5-star hotel. For 7 days, they held their famous bed-in. So if you are planning to do anything activistic, I would opt for this. What happened is that Amsterdam society came to them. So they visited them in their in bed, when they were in bed. And one of the iconic pictures is this one. John Lennon and Yoko Ono in bed with a bicycle. Not only a bicycle, but a very specific, old, white painted, rickety, single speed, sitting upright, heavy Dutch bicycle. So why were they in bed with a bicycle? We need to understand the answer if you want to play a role in a radical system change. And I will take you there slowly, and on the journey to the answer to this question, I will go a bit into philosophy. I need to do that. Sorry for that. It's warm, I know, but we will go through it anyway. It's important. I will teach you a magical trick. I will sing you a song. And I will tell you why you shouldn't be Bobo. Okay, keep this in mind. Everything will make sense later. So when they were in bed with this bicycle, Yoko Ono was already thinking about this new song. You recognize it? I hope. Yeah? Imagine. So they were writing in bed already the song and the lyrics for Imagine. So also keep that in mind. But as I said, we need to first cover some philosophy. And the key philosophy I already introduced in the beginning is this statement by Donella Meadows, the leading author of Limits to Growth, 1973. And she taught me something very important. The language that we speak, die Sprache, die Worte, die wir benutzen, um Geschichte zu erzählen, so the language we use to tell each other stories, is not a neutral mirror of reality. It isn't. It profoundly shapes what we see, what we discuss, and what kind of future we are building. Actually, the reality outside, as we also saw in the lecture before, is a solidification of a language that we started to speak. What is modern? We have to decide what language we are speaking. And to understand this, I'm going to show you what language does. Language does three important things. And the first thing is it simplifies reality. So we need language I need language to talk to you, so I chose the language of English to talk to you, because otherwise, if I would be speaking Dutch, we wouldn't understand each other. And in English, I have a limited set of words to describe reality, as in German. Like in any language has a limited set to describe reality. So we have to simplify reality. There's no way around, sorry. You have to do this, all of you, all the time. And this is clearest when you use metaphors, right? You use metaphors all the time. Voetbal is Greek, probably. Or life is a journey. Love is a battlefield. Or am I too old for that? I don't know. But one that you all use, and I'm pretty sure, and I think most of you even think it's true. It isn't, but you use it anyway. Time is money. Time is money is a metaphor that was used in the Industrial Revolution to simplify complex time. Clock time was just invented, into money so that we could exchange it. And our entire society takes it for granted. But if you later take 5 minutes of your time to think about this, and you will find out time is not money. It's the opposite of money almost. But that's what language does. It simplifies reality so that we can start talking about problems and solutions. So let's do this. So, I have to share a mistake I always make. I have a WhatsApp group with my neighbors. That's already a mistake, I can see you thinking, but that's not the mistake I want to talk about. What happens in this app group is that now and then I send a picture. So just imagine, don't ask me why, but just imagine that I just sent this picture in the app group. Okay, I just sent this picture. 5 minutes later, I get a message, a personal message from one of my neighbors, Marion, and she says to me, Marco, you did it again. You send a picture, everybody starts talking about the picture, but I am blind, so I have no clue what's on the picture. Could you please describe the picture to me in one short sentence? Okay, that's the situation. Help me. What would you write? You can do it in German, in English, doesn't matter. What would you write? Eine Reh überquert die Straße.
Im Wald.
Im Wald.
Eine Straße durchquert das Revier des Rehs.
Okay. Eine Straße überquert das Revier des Rehs. Okay. Others. Others, come on. It's warm still. Use the brain. Okay, the best one I've heard so far in meetings was a man finds his stuffed deer. But what happened now is that at least the ones that were still in the room, and the others I hope as well, what you were doing in your brain, you were simplifying reality. You were using language to say something that's actually not very complex, but still way too complex to describe. And the second element of language is very important here, because the point is not that one of these descriptions is more valid than the other. The point is that if you simplify reality, you make choices. And these choices matter. Okay? Also here, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to start shouting at each other that it's not the road crossing the forest, it's the deer. No, it's not. Both are true, but it really matters which choice you make to describe to my neighbor this picture and what she starts to think about in terms of problems and solutions. So why is this so important, and why am I always so excited to talk to rooms with people like you? That's because of the third element of language. Language is not a mirror of reality. The choices we make in simplifying reality are performative, especially with you. You use it to shape reality. How does that work? Again, a forest. This is the forest from the book Seeing Like a State by James Scott, 1998, brilliant book. And he discusses how this element of simplification always happens, not only in language, but also in governing. If you govern something, you need a language, right? You need indicators to make decisions. You need a simplification of reality to make choices. And he describes how this process works, how this is not a mirror of reality. And we start here at the primeval forest, that's Urwald. And in the primeval forest, nobody's governing this. It's a complex ecosystem. It works for many different goals. Look at it like a rabbit. Can you do that? Yeah, it's hard. The rabbit sees many places to hide. But the fox sees many places to hunt. Birds can nest here. Small animals can live here. A large variety of plants and trees can grow here, and this complex ecosystem exists without government interference. But this changed, and it changed in Germany, actually, according to James Scott. At the end of the 18th century, he describes how we changed this because we needed something from the forest. We needed wood as a fuel and as a building resource. So everybody that was owning forest wanted to develop a language to make decisions on how to optimize the production of wood. We needed a new language, so what do? You go to academia, and at that time, especially German academia. So they asked academia, can you come up with a new language to understand this? And a whole new academic domain was founded on this principle, and we still know it to this day. It's called scientific forestry. And scientific forestry developed this language for the people that then used it to govern their forest. One of the central words in there, is a very beautiful German word, is Normalbaum. Normalbaum. Normalbaum, the standard tree. And the standard tree became this ideal typical tree to understand how you can have a tree that produces the most amount of wood with the least amount of energy. Brilliant stuff, right? So you can use that as an indicator to look at your forest. But then something starts to happen. Language is chosen, simplified reality, choices are made, and then forests started to change. This is what we now see across the world. The production forest. No Urwald, no primeval forest any longer, but rows and rows and rows of Normalbäume, standard trees. And I challenge you, in the next event that you organize, to go to a nearby production forest and play hide and seek. It's impossible. Everything disappeared from this forest, right? Normalbäume, but no bushes anymore. No places to hide, no places to hunt. Small animals left these forests. Bees got extinct in these kinds of forests. Nobody could nest, nobody could grow. Only because we chose to optimize the forest for wood production. And I think I don't have to tell you this, but I normally need to tell people this, and I again refer to Germany. This is a pub quiz question. Well, which of these forests produces, in the long run, the most wood? Not this one, because the production forest is so simplified through the language of the standard tree that it became very, very vulnerable for diseases, for, in this case, the tor, one species of insect, and weather events. So over time, we've lost the resilience of the forest because we simplified it along one line of thinking. It's important to keep this in mind because I see your faces and I know that you are now thinking, why are we talking about forests? Keep this in mind because my point is that exactly the same process happened to our streets. Only more recent. This is Mulberry Street, Manhattan, New York, but it represents streets of that era. It's 1920, in the middle of a big city, and you see here a street that is not governed. I would say this is the Urstraße, or I lost the word, so let's stick with Urstraße here. The primeval street. The primeval street was described by thinkers at the time as the remaining space between buildings. It wasn't governed, it just existed. It was the space that emerged after cities started to be built, and we had to do something with the space in between. And what do you see on these kinds of images in the 1920s, only 100 years ago? All kinds of different goals being served. Just as in the primeval forest, you can see here people trading, buying stuff on that street. You can see people playing, especially children, on that street. You can see people meeting each other, using it as a public living room, because they had small houses and big families. So this street was used for all kinds of different purposes. You also see, by the way, mobility already taking shape there as well. But this is not how our streets look today. So something happened, and it was different than what happened to the forest. It wasn't something that we needed, it was a crisis that we had to face. And the crisis had to do with the mobility innovation. And the mobility innovation wasn't cars, because cars already existed. The mobility innovation here was mass-produced cars. Suddenly, cars could be produced at large numbers and at low prices. So a large number of heavy, fast vehicles entered the street and literally collided with how we were using the street. Literally collided with children especially. Children were killed in large numbers. So we had to do something, right? We cannot accept this. And we had a language for that. We had a Sprache. It was called justice. And we used justice to discuss this. It's a great book about this, Fighting Traffic by Peter Norton, and he describes how in this language, this was completely unacceptable. The car had no place in the future of our city in the 1920s, because children, by definition, were without any blame. They were playing, they were not prepared, and suddenly they were killed by this new innovation. It was completely acceptable. End of story, let's go to the drinks. No, something happened. And it took only 10 years' time, between 1920s and 1930s, a new language was developed in 10 years' time. It's a bit daunting, but it's also, I hope, later on, gives you the power to realize that we can do it as well. It happened in small steps. There was no evil mind behind this. Again, read Fighting Traffic by Peter Norton to understand this. But in 10 years' time, the language of our streets changed from a language of justice to a language of efficiency, control, and the freedom of the individual car driver. This was the birth of a new academic domain that we still know to this day as well. And that is called traffic engineering. It didn't exist in the 1920s, it was invented in the 1930s, and it fell into bigger ideas of how our cities needed to change. You might all recognize, I hope, Le Corbusier here, who actually in the beginning of his writing was very, very negative about the role of cars in cities. So he might have been the first critique of his own thinking. But the whole idea here was, cities are also Urstädte. They are not functioning efficiently, and they need to change into productive cities. Cities where the machine is functioning, where humans are happy because they are part of this functioning machine, and that are making sure that we are efficiently growing and that nobody would be hungry any longer. This is his plan for in the middle of Paris. And I've heard people visiting Paris. I hope that you also are as happy as I am that this was never realized. But these ideas were. It crystallized, it solidified into this new language of traffic engineering. And his key principle here was called the death of the street. And the death of the street meant that he said, people want to be efficient. Efficiency means that you have to be at A or at B. Everything in between is a negative. Streets should serve the purpose to bring people as fast and efficiently as possible from A to B. Optimize the machine, marginalize the human. And that's solidified, right? The choices that were made in the beginning of traffic engineering solidified. It solidified into design guidelines, at first into norms, into computer models a bit later, into laws, into behavior, institutions. It solidified into concrete, steel, and asphalt. It solidified our imagination. And that's where we are today. So this is what we now would call an intersection. And if we want to be part of a radical change, we need to understand what was the language that created this intersection in the first place. So what do we see here? We see here the result of a traffic engineer that invented a new language. He didn't start to speak the street language, but invented his own language. So let's all go back to the 1920s, okay? So we're all black and white now, and we have this big problem at our hands. Outside, children are dying in large numbers, being killed by car traffic, and we need to design the first ever academy for traffic engineers. So we need to find somebody who can write the first syllabus. It doesn't exist. The first syllabus for the first education of the first traffic engineers. Who do we ask? Come on, children are dying. We need to answer. Who are we asking?
Parents.
Parents. That's a great idea. But we didn't do it. Who do we ask?
Car makers.
Car makers. That sounds very logical, but it wasn't, because they were very small. We made them big, but at that moment they were very small. Oh no, we didn't do that either. Drivers, also a small group. We didn't do that either.
Traders.
Traders, we didn't do that either.
Architects.
Architects, brilliant idea, right? We didn't do that. Engineers. Getting closer.
Police.
The police was involved, definitely. But I will give it away. The first traffic engineer was a water engineer. And that was because at that time, water engineers had a huge standing. They solved big problems for society. They created hygienic cities by offering sewage systems, and they created water systems. So they were able to solve big societal problems in a cheap and efficient way. So please, could you help us to think about our streets? Okay. So to get to this point here, what happened, we need to understand a bit more of water engineering. So who of you has ever seen the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And I don't mean in reality, I mean in the film. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Nobody? I don't know how it is in German, but it's probably same. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No? Oh, you've missed something. Okay. A bird? A turtle. Yeah. Fighting turtles. No? Okay. I've seen it, and I always ask this question. So if you haven't seen it, let me explain it a little bit. These are human-sized turtles and a human-sized rat, basically fighting crime. Awesome. Look it up. But important here is, where do they live? They live in the sewage system of New York. And I always wondered as a child, how can a human-sized turtle live in a sewage pipe? So why do you think that is? If you're a water engineer and you have to design a sewage system, what should never happen with your sewage? Stop. It should never be blocked, right? So if you design it, it's expensive, but you design it to cope with this big intensity flood once in the 10 years. And the rest of the 10 years, human-sized turtles can live in there. You take that for granted. This is how we designed our streets. As pipelines that should never be clogged. They should never be clogged. That's the first thing. They should always flow. And free flow becomes the dominant idea of how our streets should be designed. But of course, you can't compare people with poop. That's not very convincing. So they started to borrow other metaphors, other language. And the other language that they first included was the language of the human body. We started to understand how the human body works, and it's beautiful. It's very complex, but also elegantly simple. So we started to borrow all these words. You can go now to the heart of the city. Right? We all know what that means. It's the heart of the city. It's where the city pumps. And to make the city pump, we pump blood there. So the blood is, of course, the traffic. And the traffic goes through arteries. Arteries of traffic. Verkehrsader. To the heart, obviously. Okay, I hope that none of you has this, but if you ever go to a cardiologist, what will the cardiologist tell you should never happen with your artery? Exactly. It should never be blocked. They don't want, if it's blocked in Dutch, we call it an infarct. So we also talk, I don't know if this is in German as well, we talk, if the traffic is stuck, we talk about Verkehrsinfarkt. Wow, that sounds horrible, right? Something is dying, we build a bypass. Or we have congestion, we feel congested, that's not nice, right? Okay, so this idea was added to this idea of the pipelines that should never be clogged, like the arteries should never be clogged. This became, to this day, solidified and became so important that in Germany, every half an hour on every radio station in the entire country, you will hear that there are people waiting on the highway somewhere. Correct? Every half an hour, 1 minute. If you count that up, it's 360 minutes a week, 6 hours of radio time. Every week on every radio station to talk about congestion. Somebody's waiting. I'm waiting all the time. I'm never on the news. If you wait on the highway, that's the biggest problem we have. Not a single other topic gets so much free radio time as congestion on our highways. And that's because of the language we started to speak. Okay, I have to speed up, but one important element here is we started to model this behavior. And people are not poop, but people are also not blood. People make their own decisions. Damn it. We have to model decisions. How do we do that? We need a new language to simplify all of you when you're underway. Let's borrow again. We borrowed from economics. You are all egoists. You are all cold, calculative, isolated individuals, egoistically interested only in your own utility. Yeah? That's what's on your LinkedIn page, I guess, right? That's how you introduce yourself at a party. That's what you are. In a transport model, we are all homo economicus. And we have the sole purpose as egoists to minimize our own travel time. And two important things happen there. Because remember, Le Corbusier, right? Your utility lies at A or at B, and everything in between is negative. In transport planning, this is called disutility. So being underway becomes a negative, something you want to minimize. And since then, it became solidified that the only thing that matters for us is spending our money on helping people to gain travel time. Travel time savings is the one and only metric in all the cost-benefit analysis used in ministries across the world to count for investments in mobility. Travel time savings. We need to save travel time. We need to go faster from A to B. And this is not contested. From left to right, there's no political party that's contesting this. Travel time savings are the accepted holy grail. So this is what happened. This is what we see here. And one more important thing, and you can help me here. You're all egoists, right? You all agreed? Nobody disagreed? Okay. So help me here. If two egoists meet, what can you not do? What can't you do? If you are an egoist and you meet another egoist?
I'm the first and the other's the second.
Yeah. So what can you not do?
Never let him go.
Never.
For yourself.
Never do that. You cannot negotiate. It's impossible. So everybody that meets each other at an intersection has a conflict. So the best intersection in Dutch standards is the conflict-free intersection. Because we solved it for you, for all the egoists. Thomas Schelling actually got his Nobel Prize comparing this behavior at an intersection and showing that indeed egoists cannot negotiate, especially if you put them into metal cages. It makes it even harder. But we solved it because we have the traffic engineers brought us this. Do you see it here? How's it called in German? An Ampel. But here the Dutch have the most beautiful word. First it's called a stoplight, and then there's always a traffic engineer who says, no, it's a traffic light. And then there's always one that says this. It's called a verkeersregelinstallatie. So it's a traffic regulation installation. Optimize the machine, marginalize the human. Learn our kids at the age of 4 that they have to push a button and to wait to cross the street. To go to their playground because they cannot play on the street anymore, right? We've created the production street just as we created the production forest through the language of wood production. This is what happened to Mulberry Street. We created the production street in the language of free flow and travel time savings. This is what we have created everywhere around the world. This is not where children are playing. This is not where people are trading. This is not where people are meeting each other anymore. This is a pipeline system that shuttles people as fast as possible from A to B. And did we solve it now? No, of course not. Because we're still here. We're still discussing what to do with all the bridges and tunnels in the city of Berlin. So if we are not discussing what created this system in the first place, what will happen? I can tell you what will happen. The smart people in the room, no, that's wrong. The rich people in the room will come and they will sell you what you have told them what the problem is. There are still people waiting. There's still Baustellen. There's still people having delays. Oh, give us all your money. And we have the ultimate water engineering solution. A pipeline that shoots you from Berlin to Paris. So you can drink your coffee there. 1,000 kilometers per hour. You can't look outside because it's a fixed tunnel. You have to completely make it a vacuum, which is also quite hard to do. But probably you take a pill anyway because you get nauseous if you make a corner at 1,000 kilometers. We can't really cope with that. We will solve that, but give us all your money and we build you the Hyperloop, okay? Or, from your own country, give us all your money and we will give you the self-driving vehicle. We only need you to make all your streets and the entire society around it disciplined so that it can actually function on your public spaces. But then you have what you want, right? You want the travel time savings. We give you ultimate travel time savings. Travel time does not longer exist. Give us your money and you can do other things. While the algorithm shuttles you from A to B, you do not have to cope with all these other pesky egoists. And you can do all these beautiful other things in the time that you were losing in traffic. Like well, never mind, we will solve this later, but give us all your money and we will solve the problem for you. And now you think maybe, aha, I see where this is going. John Lennon and Yoko Ono, remember? Yeah, and we invited this Dutch guy who's called the fietsprofessor because cycling will make this go away, right? Cycling doesn't fit here. We sit upright in the Netherlands, you see that? You never win the Tour de France sitting upright. It's not efficient. So cycling will save us, right? 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 No, we have all kinds of mobility as a service applications, and through all these innovations that we have, the bicycle industry of the Netherlands presents you, give us all your money, and we will give you the bicycle as the solution. Speed pedelecs, e-bikes, fat bikes, the swap feeds, commuters, bike logistics. Look at this, you can now also bike from A to B in your own pipeline system, having zero conflicts. And if you're cycling with your husband, we all know it's boring, so you can now also Zoom while you're on your way. Bike highways, Radautobahn, Radschnellwege, bicycle highways, bicycle superhighways, bicycle hyper, super bicycle highways. Give us all your money and the Dutch will solve it for you. So if this was why John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in bed with a bicycle, I present you now the lyrics of Imagine as they would have been. Imagine Radschnellwege, going fast from A to B. Speed pedelecs and e-bikes to move more efficiently. Smart bikes and smart helmets to optimize the machine. Woohoo! Thanks. But I don't think that they were in bed with a bicycle because of this. So we're not there yet. We're getting closer, I promise you. But we have to go one step deeper. Because why is this so problematic? Why is it so problematic that we use the bicycle to solve the problems? Why is it so problematic that we build bicycle highways? It's cool, right? Well, yeah. Because there's a more fundamental problem with the language that we speak. It doesn't function. Just like the production forest didn't bring us more wood, the production street doesn't bring us travel time savings. All the data shows that travel time savings do not exist. In the Netherlands, between 1950 and 2020, we invested €8 billion taxpayers' money every single year in chasing travel time savings, and 0 travel time was won. 0 seconds of travel time was won. We are traveling the exact amount of time on average. However, we are traveling much further. We didn't win travel time, we lost travel distance. We have to go further and further to the same activities. In the 1950s, the average distance of a Dutch person was about 7 kilometers per day. Today, it's 42. We have become addicted to a system that is not bringing us closer together, but that's dispersing us further and further apart. And this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem because it depletes us. It depletes society. It depletes our materials. There are no materials to replace all your bridges. There are no materials to build all your e-cars. They just are not there. It depletes the environment. It depletes us as society. And it depletes human individuals. We need to stop this. We need to. And you can do it. You can. If you were standing at the beginning, and all of you were, so I can tell you have to do this. And I'm going to teach you a magical trick to do it. Because if you want to be part of a radical change, this will only happen if you challenge the underlying narrative that created the system in the first place. If you don't do that after today, you are just optimizing the existing system. And that's fine, but then you should no longer tell people that you're working on system change. System change will only function if we question the underlying narrative. And you can do it. You can. Are you ready? I'm going to show you something that you can never unsee. Are you ready for that? It's not frightening, but you will see something you can never unsee. Afterwards, you can also take the magical trick home and score points in this evening, okay? Are you all ready? It's 3 steps, relatively simple. Second step, apparently hard for men, but I will take you through this. So everybody stand up again. So we all stand up. And You pick one finger, and you can decide which one. I always say a polite one, but it's your finger, which one. You are pointing the finger on top of your face to the ceiling, as high as you can. And always when I say this, and then I say higher, everybody can go higher, you see, as high as you can. Now, the second step, this is the hard bit for men, you're going to make clockwise circles along the ceiling. So your finger is making circles, big one, small, doesn't matter, but circles along the ceiling clockwise. The clock goes the same everywhere, however, men have a problem with that. So now is the time to sync your finger. Everybody's looking at their own finger anyway, okay? So you can look at your neighbors and think, am I actually going clockwise? Because if not, you will make a fool out of yourself later. So now do it clockwise. Okay, everybody, clockwise circles, beautiful. Now we're going to lower our finger. So we keep doing this, but we lower the finger and it will come in front of our nose. So we lower the finger, we keep making clockwise circles, and it's in front of us. Hello? Yeah, there we go. So now you lower it a bit further. You can lower it further. You can keep doing it, lower it further. Now look at your finger and tell your neighbor, which direction is your finger turning? Look at your finger and tell your neighbor what direction your finger is turning. It's okay. What happened? So there's always people redoing it. You can keep redoing it, it's the same thing. You can also do it like this, also. You can sit down again, this was the trick. What happened? Does anybody know what happened? Yes, yes, what a crowd. What happened is you showed yourself that you changed perspective. You can do that. Nothing changed, your finger did exactly the same, streets are exactly the same, the system is exactly the same, but you can decide what perspective you take to think about that system. And you will see something radically different if you use a different narrative. And this is why the philosophy was so important. This is what language does. And I'm bringing you a colleague of mine, Professor Lara Boroditsky, who will tell us why language can do this, can help you change perspective. Lara, are you there? Yeah.
Now, the beauty of linguistic diversity is that it reveals to us just how ingenious and how flexible the human mind is. Human minds have invented not one cognitive universe, but 7,000 languages spoken around the world. And we can create many more. Languages, of course, are living things that we can hone and change to suit our needs. I told you about how speakers of different languages think differently, but of course that's not about how people elsewhere think. It's about how you think. It's how the language that you speak shapes the way that you think. And that gives you the opportunity to ask, why do I think the way that I do? How could I think differently? And also, what thoughts do I wish to create?
So language is not only marketing, it's not only making other people think differently, but it helps. So if you want to find how much support there is in Berlin for radical change, start talking the language of children. You will find that many people want a better city that functions better for their children. But the important bit here is language shapes what you think. You as an individual can decide what thoughts do you want to have if you think about Verkehrswende, Mobilitätswende, Gesellschaftswende. And what happens if you challenge your own thinking? You need to do that. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is the answer to the long-awaited question. This is why John Lennon and Yoko Ono were in bed with a bicycle. Not because the bicycle was going to solve congestion, or that it was faster to go to your cubicle in the morning. No. The bicycle was brought to them by the Provo's, the counter-movement of the 1960s that saw the bicycle as a symbol, a lens for a different future. If you want to learn something Dutch, remember this one. De fiets is iets en bijna niets. The bicycle is something and almost nothing. The bicycle, the white painted bicycle, for them represented the end of brutal capitalism. They said, we do not want to live in a city that's an efficient machine. We want to live in a city where love exists. We don't want to live in a place where going from A to B needs to be as fast as possible. We want to live in a city where streets thrive, where we meet each other, and where life is meaningful. That's what we want. And that's what the bicycle here presents. So please, 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 take this lesson from me and don't follow the Dutch in what they did. but use the bicycle as a potential means to do much, much bigger things. And I'm very happy that I already heard that you're looking at Paris, because Paris, Anne Hidalgo, the mayor there, really got this. She started to talk a different narrative, and you know what happened? She got re-elected. She got re-elected and has a mandate to do all these things that we are now looking for. A new language matters. So let's try it. This is the final example. I'm going to bring you to Amsterdam. And since I'm in a room with mostly Germans, I have to give a disclaimer. In the next 2 clips, nobody gets hurt. Everybody's fine. Okay? But we can go to a central place in Amsterdam and say, hey, this is a busy intersection. And the traffic engineer would tell us, it is. It is. There's all these individuals going from A to B and they have all these conflicts. We need to solve it. I can solve it. Give us your money. Nobody's hurt. It's all fine. I will give you a verkeersregelinstallatie, an ampel. Or no, a roundabout, the Dutch roundabout. It will solve all the conflicts. But I said, but wait a minute. Let's go back to John Lennon and Yoko Ono and ask somebody else. So I asked, I can go back, I think. Let's do it again. Yeah. So I asked a sociologist and said, let's go to the same place. And the sociologist said, oh, wait a minute. What I see is potential exposure to diversity. Potential exposure to diversity is something we as sociologists know is very important. If people are exposed to each other in public space, they actually are trusting each other more. They know each other more and they learn to negotiate, because that's what humans actually can do. Potential exposure to diversity is a crucial part of this functioning of this city. But there's something more to it, because these people are not only meeting each other, no, they are exchanging a lot of information. This is what a Dutch guy and girl can do by birth almost, sitting on this bike, not falling off, and sitting upright. So you can use all your senses to get and receive sensory input. You use the position of your feet to negotiate with other people. You use your eyes, your ears, your smell, your body, your whole posture to do a dance. You're not an egoist, sometimes, but you can also be an altruist by giving somebody else a bit more room, by going slightly to the left and to the right. It's this crazy dance, which is called negotiation, emotion, and you can always recognize a German tourist. Wait for it. Okay, let this be a lesson. Never put your foot down. Okay? Always stay in the dance. And why is this so important? Because the potential exposure to diversity and negotiation emotion together create magic. If you look into the literature of sociology, they say that people that meet each other, instead of algorithms dealing with public space, please. No. Oh, that's too bad. You have to believe me here. But if people meet each other in public space, this has a positive effect on their feeling of belonging, their feeling of neighboring, even their levels of citizen participation. It has an effect on their sense of place, their sense of being, and most importantly, what sociologists say, it has to do with the levels of trust that people have when they engage with each other. Boom! There were politicians in the room, right? Can you imagine that this is your story? That you're not going to spend all this taxpayer money on non-existent travel time savings and the next extra lane of highway. No, instead you're using the budget to make society function better. Wow! What a new story! And you can just do it. It's just a matter of being aware that it's your choice what language you speak. Okay, I had one more promise. You remember? Don't be Bobo. Don't be Bobo. This is my final thing that I want to give you. Don't be Bobo. And you can only understand this by looking at Bobo. Bobo is a dog, and Bobo will show us what Bobo does. Yeah. Please, Bobo.
Come here, Bobo.
Come here.
Good girl. Come. Good girl. Come on. Come on, Bobo. Come on, Bobo. Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on! Come here, come on!
So my same sociological colleague told me that laughter in the room is a sign of unease. Because you feel it, right? You're all Bobo. You're all being held back by the idea that there's a window, that there is a framework, that there is a way of talking about mobility in the street that you cannot escape, that you're waiting for this guy from the Netherlands or somewhere else, Copenhagen maybe, or Paris, or Barcelona to tell you and open the door. No, there is no glass in the door. Do it. You raised yourself in the beginning. You wanted to play an important role. There's nobody holding you back. You can start a new language and start talking about the street anytime you want. Language is not a mirror of reality. Language profoundly shapes what you see and what you do not see. Language makes reality by the actions that you collectively are going to do. So you need to make more and better choices. If you want to be part of a radical system change, you need to be more aware of the underlying language and how you are either challenging it or not. Is the street for you still a place where traveling is a disutility, a negative thing that needs to be reduced? Or, after today, the street for you is a place where traveling is actually a quality, a positive thing, something that we can all enjoy? Is the street a place where the pipeline needs to function efficiently? Or is the street a place where society meets? Are we going to create a society where everybody is an individual egoist? Or are we going to work on Berlin, where all people are together thriving as a society? These are our choices. These are our choices, except for me, because I'm going away anyway. These are your choices. And you all, if you were standing in the beginning, need to make that choice after today. And I wish you not only all the best, but I wish you a lot of fun in that process. Thank you very much.